here to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Making news just for you. It's March 10th here in Seoul. I'm Shin, and this is News Generation, where we make the news at Arirang's very own open studio. Every morning, we'll discuss the top issues and latest current affairs affecting people in their 20s and 30s. Joining me in the studio is Kdrama.
Happy Friday, everyone!
Happy Friday! And Now Song.
Happy Friday!
Yay!
Now, both are here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. Now, let's head into our news feed for the day. Every day, we pick 3 of the top trending hashtags on social media over the past 24 hours to tell you what stories the new generation are talking about. The first hashtag is masks. South Korean health officials are considering lifting the requirement to wear face masks on public transport. If it is lifted, face masks will only be required at medical facilities, pharmacies, and high-risk facilities like nursing homes in Korea. Authorities will convene in a meeting next week to discuss when this will be plausible. The second hashtag is serving robots. These days, we're seeing more robots serve at restaurants. These tech-savvy helpers have been doing wonders to owners' businesses. According to the Labor Ministry, the minimum wage has increased by 27% over the past 5 years. So for the first time ever, one could earn around $1,500 a month with a minimum wage. That's why more businesses are looking for cheaper workers that can be easily managed. The most affordable serving robots on the market are around $227, and Korea Statistics has forecast the number of serving robots in Korea to surpass 10,000 this year. Now, the third hashtag is Squid Game. The Korean Cultural Center in Hong Kong will open a real-life version of the popular Korean Netflix drama series Squid Game. In the drama, hundreds of contestants competed in children's games for a handsome load of money. But the stakes were deadly. The Cultural Center said it will hold matches with the actual games played in the drama, like Red Light, Green Light, and Sugar Honeycombs. The real-life Squid Games will be held on March 12th, 3:30 p.m. at Wan Chai Stadium in Hong Kong. Now, if we take a closer look at the last hashtag, the real-life Squid Game, it's actually set for November last year. But the Korean Cultural Center in Hong Kong decided to postpone it due to the Itaewon Crush tragedy. A total of 100 people will be divided into 20 groups to compete this March, and the Cultural Center said it took less than a day to finish registration, especially since applications were open as first come, first serve. Now, this shows just how popular this Korean drama was. 4 weeks into its release back in 2021, 111 million people had watched Squid Game on Netflix, and it became the most popular drama ever to be aired on an OTT platform. Now, if I ask the panelists in the studio, what are your thoughts on this news story? Niall, would you be willing to participate in a real-life Squid Game if you were given the chance?
The big question is, how handsome is this handsome son of money? How much is the prize?
That's a very good question, but for the Korean Cultural Center in Hong Kong, they're just holding it as a cultural event, so no money there.
Oh, she's not doing it.
Then no, absolutely not. No, I'm just kidding. But I just want to know what happens to the people who get outed from the game.
Right.
I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't watched it yet. You should, but it doesn't really end happily for those who leave the game. So I'm just wondering how it ends, and if I'm guaranteed that I won't be hurt badly, then
Like,
yeah,
you can leave peacefully.
then maybe I'll do it. It might make for a really good vlog.
Right, so there were definitely a lot of deadly stakes there.
Yes.
And back in January, a real-life Squid Game show was held in England, and during the shoot, 3 were treated for mild injuries. So there were definitely some safety precautions that needed to be better taken care of. But Cheska, if it takes place in Korea, would you be one of the 456 contestants there?
Niall's already smiling. I think I would be the very first to raise my hand and say, excuse me, sir, I think I lost my way. May I go home? But I did hear that Netflix is filming Squid Game 2, the actual Netflix show. Now that I will be on for sure, and I think I'll definitely perform better on the real less show.
Yes.
Thank you, Netflix.
I will join her. Yes, thank you, Netflix.
We're ready.
Call us.
All right, that was our news feed for this Friday. And why don't we now head into our main discussion? Take a look at the screen to find out what we have for you today. Here in Korea, there have been a few posts that went viral on social media. They said things like, don't meet your friends or have unnecessary get-togethers on March 10th. Why? It's because this Friday is when the second season of the hit Netflix drama series, The Glory, is being released. Since the release of the first season last December, the drama topped charts for the most watched Netflix series in around 60 countries. It tells a story about a victim of school bullying who plots revenge on her bullies. Apart from receiving rave reviews for being well made, The Glory has motivated victims of school violence to launch online campaigns and use social media or broadcast channels to expose their bullies. It has also drawn attention to how severe bullying is at local schools and what measures need to be done to tackle this. Today News Gen looks at 3 questions. 1. Just how severe is school violence here in Korea? 2. What's it like abroad? 3. What are some ways the new generation seeks to punish or expose alleged past school bullies? As we just saw, today is the release date for the 2nd season of the popular Netflix series The Glory. This drama series has led to more attention on school bullying both here and outside of Korea. So why don't we first talk about the current situation? Cheska, just how serious and prevalent is school bullying here in Korea and other parts of the world?
So the Netflix show The Glory definitely opened the floodgates for many of the real-life incidents that have been happening here in South Korea, right?
Yeah.
Because the show itself is actually based on a true-life account of a middle school student who was harassed by a group so severe that she was hospitalized for 6 weeks. Now, despite the harrowing act, the perpetrators were left without any criminal record. And you can see that, these kind of incidents definitely, are continuing, and the tragedies have begotten is just one of the many. Students have committed suicides and, have been mentally and physically impaired due to the cruelty of these violences. Now, the rippling effect of the show is that it has opened up a safe ground and sort of promoted the discussion for the victims to come out and share their testimonials. And even some celebrities have openly talked about their traumas that have lived with them for the rest of their lives. Now, one interesting thing is this social movement has become international and started something called #ThaiTheGlory.
Oh, Thailand.
Yeah, exactly. And even brought a Thailand celebrity to face its past and make a public apology.
Oh, wow. Man.
And Nell, what about you? What do you think about this serious situation?
Yeah, I mean, I've actually personally experienced bullying outside of Korea, but a lot of it was verbal, emotional abuse, and a little bit of sexual harassment. When I saw The Glory, it's a part that people kind of overlook, but the sexual harassment part is actually in there as well. And I was like, oh, I've seen that before. But it wasn't as physical, thankfully. But there was a time somebody threw a bucket of water from the 2nd floor and I got wet. So, yeah, so when I saw The Glory, while I did, empathize, it was just absolutely horrible, horrible, horrible. But I recommend it. You should watch it. But it's just so painful to watch. And from my experience of being abroad, a lot of the bullying came alongside of racism. Yeah.
And you know what? After hearing this story, my heart is just pounding so hard because I'm getting so angry. And that also happened to me when I watched the 1st season of The Glory as well. I was so shocked at how violent and cruel these bullies could be. But I was actually even a bit more shocked to find out that the reality was grimmer than that.
Yeah.
So, Cheska, tell us more. What are some forms of bullying we're seeing currently here in the country?
I mean, it is so awful, but you said it very correctly. The reality is sometimes more cruel and more harrowing than the show, but we must face it in order for change, right? So here's a stat from a survey of students from elementary through high school. Now, more than 40% are bullied through verbal abuse, followed by group bullying, physical, cyber, and even stalking, which is an actual form of crime.
Wow.
And when asked for reasons behind these attacks, about 36% of the respondents said, quote, "We were abused for no particular reason," which is even more alarming.
It is. It definitely is.
It is, exactly. And beyond the stats, what we must note here is that some bullying escalate to an unspeakable degree. And we're talking about criminal offense, about sexual violence, gang rape, bludgeoning people to near death, and abuse so severe that it completely destroys the lives of these young people. And therefore, no matter what the said intentions were, if the inflicted person is in pain and suffering, there's absolutely no tolerance and no justification whatsoever.
Violence is unacceptable no matter
what the
it
form.
should never be accepted. But these are some shocking and distressing stats that you showed right there. And what happens then to the victims or these bullies? Like, how has our judicial system or society been looking over them, I guess?
And this is a great question because this is exactly where the actions and changes need to happen. So according to the Korea Times, an article just published 3 days ago, 0.2% of assailants, 0.2 are expelled.
Only 0.2.
Can you imagine? That's less than 1%.
That is,
No.
wow.
And it gets worse. Mere 5% get transferred to a different school. So imagine if the three of us were victims in a school, it is very likely we would still be in a class with our attackers all throughout our graduation
That's
year.
No.
So what ends up happening is the victims self-transfer or quit the school in order to escape the horror. I mean, why is our system putting the responsibility of self-protection on the
Right.
victims, right?
That shouldn't be the case.
And what's worse is that some parents actually abuse the legal system and drag out the court appeals for so long so that their children wouldn't have a record by the time they graduate and go to college.
Oh my goodness.
So there's a lot of things that are happening that really needs to change. And on top of that, which Niall probably you would know better, but there's a lot of things happening on social media and online that the law really needs to catch up and must
Yes.
address.
No, I couldn't relate. I could just relate to what you just said right now. You said our system is putting the responsibility of self-protection on the
On the
victims.
victims,
Yeah.
I think that's why The Glory actually caught a lot of attention and popularity.
Right.
Because in the drama series, the protagonist, avenges her bully.
That is a great
It's
point.
a revenge
Yes.
drama, yeah.
Exactly. Of course, once again, though, violence should never be condoned. We should
Never
never be
justified.
promoting
Yes.
it. But it's that severe. The judicial system and the current institutions are too weak.
And it fails to protect.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
It
And it
fails to
drives them
protect
to
them.
that point. Yeah.
And speaking of driving them to the point, it's getting really severe because bullying has evolved in various different platforms.
sure.
As you briefly mentioned, Cheska, we're also seeing it online, right?
Yeah, and I mean, cyberbullying started off when internet became more accessible to the public. Yeah, but the fact that you can be anonymous, say whatever you want, and you can still stay in the dark, and there's so much freedom, it's just so toxic,
It
right?
spreads even more quickly, right? Because
Right,
all you need is,
right.
You tab something on and
Right,
it
it
spreads,
just
spreads like
goes. It's
wildfire.
so simple, so easy, and there's anything from threats, sexual harassment, and hateful, violent language. And nowadays, I think bullying can kind of go onto social media as people go in there and comment so that to a
Right.
point that they cannot use their social media
so
anymore,
nauseous.
or kind of in a more private way where people invite the victims into a group chat and say awful, terrible things, threaten them, and it can really just go from anything from emotional harassment to sexual harassment, and they just keep inviting them over and over.
Exactly. And it's mentally very scarring as well.
Yeah, it's so stressful, and it's just gonna stay with you for the rest of your life. That's how they're gonna be shaped.
And I think a really frightening part of that is because it's done on social media or through your phones, it's really hard for the teachers to manage all that and
Exactly.
control that.
Right, and it's 24 hours, it's ongoing. Before it was just at school, you come back home and there was kind of that safe place, but it's just an ongoing thing over and over, and it can't be stopped.
Yeah, there's no safe haven for you anymore.
sure.
So, and apart from getting a lot of views and attention, I do think that The Glory did cause some movement for change or shed light on a dark issue that definitely still needs a lot of work. But what are your thoughts on this, Cheska?
I think it was a great start for attention. However, what we need is more action, not just
sure.
attention, to prevent and to protect. So according to experts, the system must implement what's called a zero tolerance, an education that focuses on both the punishment and rehabilitation.
For sure.
And moreover, research has proven over and over again that family environment is the #1 factor in many juvenile crimes. So if parents fail to provide security for these children, what needs to happen is, because the root cause is right there, it must be held accountable, as
Definitely.
they do in the States with social services.
And I
Right.
think you mentioned a really good point. We are now going to use this time to talk to a teacher from the United States to find out what that country is trying to do in terms of dealing with bullies and school violence and what it's trying to do to help victims. We're now going to include a middle and high school teacher in our talks. It's Olivia Joseph from Pennsylvania in the United States. Great to have you here, Olivia.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Now, we are covering a relatively grim topic, and so I would like to first ask, what is school violence like in the United States? And of course, it's a serious issue, but how severe is it there?
I mean, I would say nowadays that bullying is definitely something that happens to kids on a daily basis. And obviously, I think it's very obvious that school shootings have been a really prevalent problem that's been happening in the United States. And I just feel like with so much social media, it's made kids feel really detached from their environment, and they just don't have a lot of empathy. And when they say things online, they just really don't think twice about it because it's just out there. And then they're like, well, I didn't say it. So, yeah. And then there's been, going back to the school shootings, is there's been lots of warning signs from kids when those things happen that just nobody picks up on. So it's really fascinating to know that this is something that's happening kind of everywhere, but in a really sad way.
Right. And do you have any questions here in the studio?
So the Netflix show The Glory was roughly based on a true incident, as we talked about, and it sparked a very heated discussion here in South Korea. As a school teacher, which parts could you relate to or shock you the most? And also any suggestions on what the students can do in similar situation before things actually escalate?
Yeah, a lot of what happened in that kind of shocked me because just as a teacher, I could not imagine threatening any of my students, and none of the teachers that I know would ever come close to, like, you can have issues with parents and like outside things, but like at the end of the day, the goal as a teacher is to love your kids and to be there for them and to feel like to bring outside things like that into the classroom. I was like, all right, well, I hopefully never see that one. But yeah, it was definitely something that I don't plan to do. But I feel like students are definitely very mindful nowadays that bullying is happening, and there's lots of things that get set up in schools, especially at the beginning of the school year. Just like you can go to the counselor, there's different apps and programs that kids can kind of get into to then let everybody know if there's an issue, or like then we can get into the issue and help solve it.
Yeah, and you just started mentioning it, but what are some ways, that we can prevent that? What are some ways that schools in the United States are now doing to prevent it? And after it does happen, how do we prevent it from happening again?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of it is that as soon as you see it happening in my classroom, you have to call it out and be like, I'm going to talk to you after class, or I'm going to write you up. Because if you see bullying, I'm never going to just let it go. I feel like I want to have a community in my classroom where we're all there to learn. So, but at my school, we have something called Safe to Say. It's an app that if something happens, you can report it anonymously, and then it goes back to, our principals and administration. So then they can read it and solve the issue that way. Because sometimes kids are really shy, and if someone's picking on them, they don't want to make it known or draw any more attention to themselves from the bullying. So that's a really great way that we can kind of do things like that to
that sounds
have
like a great
better
start,
environment and stop. Yeah.
Wow.
And I think the fact that students know that they have teachers like yourself to talk to and really bring out the problem for you to help is really helpful as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Olivia. It was a pleasure to hear from you today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
All right, if I bring the discussion back to the studio, Cheska, which point did Olivia make that really captivated your attention?
She both mentioned it, but she talked about how now bullying is happening on cyberspace, on social media. And Niall, I know you mentioned it, but I think another reason that cyberspace crime is so important is because the evidence can be deleted.
Yes.
Whereas physical evidence remains on your body, or it actually happens, so there are witnesses.
Right.
Whereas, social media, all you have to do is just delete the record, and you can just say, I didn't do it.
It must be a pickle for teachers to control this. Definitely, it's so hard to manage. What about you now?
I love that they have this app that you can go anonymously and talk about it, but also the fact that she feels responsible to confront the students and to protect her own students like that. And I think we need more teachers, more, principals, schools that feel responsible for the safety of their children.
Definitely. And apart from it differing in Korea and the United States based on school shootings, right? In the States, we're seeing more of that.
Right.
But what I realized is this is a global phenomenon. It's happening in schools nationwide, school violence. violence, bullying, and that's why we need much more effort and attention on this topic. And given that we are a live morning program, we always try to involve our viewers by asking them questions related to our discussion topic in advance, and we use this time to share with you what they had to say. So we asked our viewers what they think about bullying and whether they had watched the Korean drama series The Glory. Robin Whitten said The Glory by Kim Eun-suk is the best thriller K-drama for 2022-23. That being said, it was Pink Shirt Day, Anti-Bullying Day here in Canada 2 weeks ago, which raises awareness not only for children, but parents and all Canadians. Euphoria143 said, I did watch The Glory, and I must say it brings back some bad memories of being bullied in school. If you're in that position, it feels like you're invisible to everyone but your bullies. Onju said, love it, and I can't wait for season 2. Being Korean in the US in the late 70s, I got bullied every day. But back then, no adult cared about bullying. I was physically, mentally, and emotionally abused every day. Now, these are some comments from our viewers. What did you think about them, Cheska?
You know, Yeon, my heart truly goes out to all of our viewers who so courageously spoke up about their own past and traumas. And as Euphoria said, I think a lot of victims tragically carry the guilt and the blame themselves because it's myself versus the many, right? So they blame themselves for becoming the target. But I think all of us here stand for it. But please know that it is a standing truth that no form of violence is ever justified, and it is never your fault, but only theirs.
Definitely. And Niall?
Yeah, and I can relate to Onju for sure about being bullied for being Korean. That's, that's who you are. And my heart breaks that she says that no adults were available to help, prevent that or protect her from it. And nowadays, I think being Korean has become kind of cooler with the K-content and, K-pop and K-drama. But no matter the case, there's never a reason that you can justify violence. So I am with her on this.
Exactly. And I would also like to thank our viewers for being so courageous and really being involved with our discussion topic for today. And if you want to participate, please search ArirangNews on YouTube. Look into our community tab. The link is right below. Now, we've come to the final part of our discussion for today. And I would like to end off by asking, what thoughts would you like to leave for our viewers going forward?
I just want to say that I truly hope that our talk here today transfers some strength and support to everyone that has gone through something like this or that might be going through something like this. Euphoria said it, but despite the fact that you may feel invisible, please know that your presence, your voice, and your life are very visible to all of us here. And as members of our society, I hope that we all recognize the responsibility and empowerment to create zero tolerance so that one day, I hope we can say shows like The Glory can be a complete fiction of the past.
Absolutely.
And we can say, hey, that was our once upon a time.
Definitely. We must be hoping for that. And what about you now?
And I think like we talked about in our interview with Olivia today, being that person, that one individual to stand up and confront people and call people out when they are doing that, because we are all still learning. And if kids are making that mistake, it's up to us adults to point that out, confront them, correct them so that they can actually live a healthier lifestyle for themselves as well. So I hope that everybody watching, everybody here can be that individual in society.
And this definitely isn't an individual problem. It's a societal problem that needs movement from everyone here. Now, that's all we have for you today. We talked about one of the hottest headlines in the news this Friday, the release of season 2 of Netflix's The Glory. But we went deeper to talk about school violence and find out what we think is the best way to deal with this. And please don't ever blame yourself or be ashamed of being a victim of bullying. As you must have found out, sadly, bullying is quite common and it definitely needs more work. If you're in Korea and are going through this, you can call 117 or ask for help from your school police officer, teacher, or counselor. And we'll be here every day from 9:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you the topics that young people are talking about. Special thanks to Cheska Dainhong.
Thank you. This discussion was very meaningful. Thank you.
And Niall Song.
Always a pleasure.
And thank you everyone for watching. We are
News Generation.